It might be, it might not be.
Set? All right. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Started here. For those who don't know me, the name is Al Land. I was one of the co-coordinators of this mission trip. And this is, Al put this together. There's different places that we've gone to as a mission trip. I want to thank everybody for their support and their prayers for us during this trip. It was, every trip is unique in itself, and this one was another really exciting trip for us. These were our participants. Susan Van Lith, she was the first one, the first time she went along with Kevin Hume. Then Al Van Lith, Dan Gordon. Dan is not here. He was one of the originals from the youth mission trip, who's now working with us at the adult mission trip. And Kevin Hume, we thank him for his singing skills. He had porch work, whatever, and he's doing a lot of singing. We were really in a unique situation. The woman whose house we were working on, I'll show you the information later on. She was living in the house. Oftentimes, the people aren't in the house, and they're not there until after. You may meet them half the time, but she actually was living in the house, so it was mostly exterior work, whatever. So she sat inside of her house, but listening to our conversations and while we were doing the work, whatever. So Kevin was doing a lot of singing, so I've had some conversations with her afterwards. She's called me. She goes, "Who was that guy who was doing all that singing?" It's Kevin.
You forgot your name on that list.
To give you an idea of how St. Bernard Project was founded, I'm going to go over, it's a clip that we have here that it kind of explains how it got started in the first place. Trying to get this thing to...
Let's click on it again.
That's right, I need to go over to this side, right? Find it.
Keep sliding your mouse over.
Okay, Al. There it is. Okay, got it.
And increase it on the file right. Up there.
This is the first year SBP got started in 2005.
The house was destroyed.
Everybody grew up in that house.
All my sisters and brothers, my 3 children, and my grandchildren. St. Bernard just started rebuilding it. It gives me a lot of hope.
After Katrina, we wanted to pitch in and help out.
We started building houses, the 2 of us.
And people just started coming. It was so incredible. They volunteered, they donated, and that kicked off SBP. It was really an adventure, learning how to do construction.
Family who've lost homes and have never come back from Katrina. We're here to get the city back to what it once was.
We had our first AmeriCorps team work with us soon after we opened up. We thought with more staff and more volunteers and more AmeriCorps members and money, we would be able to see more families come home, and the exact opposite was happening. The results were getting worse.
We knew we needed to work smarter, we just didn't know how. To do that, we had to change, and we were really fortunate to have met Toyota at that point.
Over the last 70 years, Toyota's been developing how to create the best production system possible.
If we do something well, we want to share. We want to give it back to the community. The whole thinking behind the Toyota production system is continuous improvement. And how do we improve the process? We want to get everybody back home. in Toyota, the shop floor line stops, there's a problem. You can see it very quickly. In this kind of setting, across the whole city of New Orleans, it's not so simple to see.
Before Toyota came in, we had a lot of information about our different clients' homes, but a lot of it was sort of tucked away and hidden in computers. When you have a whiteboard system that's set up, it's easy for anybody to use, it's easy for anybody to read and track all the different projects and whether they're ahead or behind.
We were the good guys, right? We were successful. We had built more houses than anyone else. We didn't talk about problems.
By eliminating problems, we're getting incrementally better. We fix little things all day long, and the collective of all those little things helps overall performance significant.
People said there weren't enough ladders.
We named all of our ladders so that way we know, all right, we do have 2 extension ladders, we don't have to go buy another 2.
Some of them we give like human names like Morty, Tuesday,
Emily,
Mr. Stepalon.
Laddersaurus Rex.
It's taken us 116 days to build houses before Toyota, and after it was 61 days. We reduced construction time almost by half. So, you know, that's a big difference.
Once you're liberated, you can actually talk about what's not working, and there's a tried and true process to fixing it. So you look at Toyota's team. If you do it well, share it. We've worked in 4 different states, training other organizations. We can change disaster recovery in America.
I do have a dream job. To see the impact, you can't see that in metrics.
This is how it should be. This is people enjoying their life. And what we do is help people get back to just being normal and living their lives.
Back to this. Go ahead. Okay. All right. At this time, I'm going to turn over to Ginger. Ginger has done a lot of work with SBP, not only through St. Matt, but also on her own in Puerto Rico. She's done it twice. She's been in Puerto Rico on her own, so I want her to give her perspective on the mission trips. And okay.
Good morning. Good morning. Like Al said, I've been on 6 trips now with SBP, 4 with St. Matt's. I've been to New Orleans, I've been to Houston 3 times. I hope we're done with Houston. And I went to Puerto Rico twice. I just want to say, the mission trip has come a long way since my first trip to New Orleans. It's like we now stay in BBROs, we have our own bedrooms, we have bathrooms. It's quite comfy. So why do I do this? Well, first of all, as you saw there, the people that are impacted by these disasters really don't have much to begin with. And then they lose everything. And it's like, how can I help? So I think, all right, I love to work with my hands. I love to travel. And I love to serve. So we work hard. We get dirty. We sweat a lot. But we play hard too. And it's like, why wouldn't you want to go? And you get to go with all these great people. And you get to be friends and you develop relationships that are priceless. Not only with your fellow coworkers, but with the people who are with SBP and the homeowners themselves too. And each time I go, it re-emphasized how blessed I am here in Milwaukee. And I just want to give back. Each trip is an adventure. And the joy that I receive far outweighs any discomfort or hard work that we do. It's like the people are just so delightful. They are so appreciative of everything that we do. And through SBP, I have refined my painting skills. I have learned how to install hand mud drywall. I have laid tile, I have laid flooring, and I use a lot of tools I never thought I would. But I stand before you and say, I am unabashedly terrified of a nail gun. And SBP's video alluded to it, but since 2006, they've rebuilt 547 homes and financially supported 50 other organizations who rebuilt 397 homes. So that's a total of 944 families, which is almost 60 a year, or 5 a month. That's pretty impressive, and they're still going strong. So disaster impact is not equally distributed. There are 3 painful facts that really stick out. FEMA rejects people of color without explanation, twice as much as they do whites. People of color receive 5 to 10% less funding, and people of color are 14.2 less likely to receive an in-person inspection. So SBP is also committed to changing this. So, Al alluded to Puerto Rico. How did I end up serving in Puerto Rico? Well, I served with SBP. I knew they were a great organization. It was February. It was cold in Milwaukee. I wanted someplace warm to go. I said, how can I put these two together? So I just contacted SBP and said, hey, got anything going in Puerto Rico? And they said, sure, come on down. So I was a little selfish. I wanted a vacation as well. So it's, Puerto Rico is just a beautiful island. The people are so genuine and so loving. It's really a pleasure to go down there and enjoy it. So all you have to do to volunteer on your own, if you want to do it, is contact SBP. They'll let you know where the need is, what they want you to do. You get on the internet, you find a place to stay, you rent a car, you get a flight, you pray a lot, and you go. And it's been well worth every effort of it. So in 5 years in Puerto Rico, since the combination Irma/Maria hit, people are still reeling and have not been very successful so far collectively to recover. And then just last fall they got hit again with Fiona. So I set them back just a tad. One thing I learned with FEMA in Puerto Rico is that FEMA wants a proof of ownership before they will fund your reconstruction. Puerto Rico lives in a community structure and a culture. They don't necessarily have proof of ownership. They don't have deeds to their property. They just live there and everybody, it's like common law, everybody just goes with it. So they had no documentation that they could own, that they actually owned the property. So FEMA was way behind on all of that. So before I go on too long, because I know there's a lot of other things to say, I am also on the list for Florida. They're still they're assessing the damage. They're getting themselves organized, and as soon as they figure out what they need, they're going to call me and I'll head down to Florida. So if anybody's interested, contact SBP and come with me. Thank you.
Ginger, do you just get assigned to a group that's already working on something?
I have, it's been both. I have been by myself.
Oh, okay.
I've also been with a bunch of teenagers from New York. It depends on.
Okay.
Thanks, Ginger.
You're welcome.
We actually, we were on a trip, I think it was in New Orleans, where we had one gentleman who came by himself. And then he joined us for one day. He was in town, kind of like with Ginger or whatever, and he just joined us for a day. So you don't have to go in a group, you can just go individually if you want to. I don't know if you can read that information, but as the video said, SBP, or St. Bernard Project, got its name because it got the first start in New Orleans. That's under the, it's in the St. Bernard Parish, which is like a county here. And it was St. Bernard Project. So because they've been going all around different parts of state and also Puerto Rico, they just renamed themselves SBP. And like the video, they work with AmeriCorps. You get a lot of AmeriCorps volunteers, which really helps out a lot. For us, the beauty of SBP is before we went on our mission trips, we'd get on the vans, we'd take all our equipment and head down there, and we're spending a day down, a day to come back. They provide all the equipment, they provide all the training. I've also been in some mission trips where they give you they drop all the materials off and say, we'll see you at 1 o'clock, whatever. SBP they have a rule, there has to be at least 2 coordinators at the property with you at all times. So if you have any problems, any equipment breaks down, whatever, they get on the phone, whatever, and they get the equipment. So that's the beauty of that. So now we can fly down there instead of riding, then there's 2 more days that we can have working instead of traveling. So that's the main reason we like SPP, because they provide all the materials. It works out really nice. And Ginger alluded to the fact that they also working with like emergency, a lot of communities down south, they don't have emergency management like Wisconsin does, and a lot of places up here. So what they do is they provide municipalities information how to fill out the forms for disaster relief and all. So they do a lot of stuff going beyond just fixing up homes. They help everybody get set up to speed up the process. Like I said, SPP has grown to serve a whole bunch of other areas, high-asterisk areas where the youth has also gone. New Orleans area for Katrina, Sandy, Joaquin, Harvey, Maria, and the California fires. In 2017, Houston, Hurricane Harvey was the Category 4 storm that hit Texas on August 25th. It made landfall 3 times in 6 days. So we served in Houston in 2018 and 19, and then COVID because of COVID we didn't serve. But then in 2021, Houston was hit again, this time with, they call it the Great Texas Blackout, with the power grid because of the freezing temperatures. Winter Storm Uri exposed the Texas grid. Texas, along with many other southern countries, they don't have regulations as far as playing pipes below the ground. You have the freeze zone. And because of that, there was a lot of pipes were just bursting randomly in houses, outside of houses, because they lost power. There was no electricity, there was no gas, there was a lot of issues with that. A lot of people perished as a result of that. What was explained to me by the SPP staff is that the Houston Power Grid has no backup. They're not backed up with any other communities or any other states, whatever. So when it goes down, it goes down. There is no backup. The only backup which they did have was their solar power, not the solar power, the wind power. And unfortunately, that didn't work either because that was not, it was not winterized. They were warned about it in advance. They said it would cost too much. And as a result of that, it was a disaster because a lot of people froze to death and whatever because there was no power, no electric. So there was a lot of problems with that. More than 4 million residents were without power and water, and dozens perished due to the extreme cold. You know, it just, and the utility companies, it was really it was an issue of it would cost too much. They had similar issues until a lesser extent in '89 and 2011. They had a chance to winterize it, they decided not to. So it created a lot of problems. So what the house that we had, Verna Gilbert, was still, you know, this is Verna's house. What happens with SPP is about a week before we go there, we get a bio on the person's house we're working on. So we got this with Verna. She was registered with SPP for quite a long time, but she was later down as far as priority because she was still living in her house. They're going after people who are either living in hotels or can't live in their house. We had one the last time we went where they were living in their garage, and while we were working in their house. So the priority of those aren't living in their house. So she bought this house in 1966. The home survived several natural disasters without taking significant damage, so she was really glad that her number finally came up, so we got this information on Verna Gilbert. It's kind of interesting. This is probably of all the trips that I've been on it anyway, it was interesting because the owner was there throughout the whole time. You know, sometimes they'll come and visit whatever for a couple hours or whatever, or not even see anybody at all, but this is the first time she was in the house the entire time. So it was a neat experience just getting to know her and the experience and getting to know her as a person. Here's a picture. I took a picture again. AmeriCorps is working with SPP. AmeriCorps really The staff there, they commit to a 10-month term. They're basically college students or just out of college, and work directly with them to work with SBP. SBP is like their coordinator, and then the AmeriCorps just kind of carries out the plan. First day, they always give instructions. How to use the equipment, kind of how to use a ladder or whatever, but they have to do it, and some of the scaffolding and things like that. So they, again, many benefits is that they have the equipment there, so it works out really nice. And again, some more, just another picture of us waiting, getting all the equipment, getting instructions on what we're going to be doing. For us, the house, it was priming and several coats of paint on the house. There was one room on the inside that needed some work, but our majority of our work was outside. Unfortunately, that first day, I don't know how hot it was, but the sun was beating, and it just, it was pretty hot. It was a tough one. There's the three coordinators that were there. We had a fellow, he was originally from Africa, and he moved to New York, and then we got involved with SBP. There was Daniel, he was in the yellow shirt. He was a native Houstonian, and actually in the middle of the week, that's when they had the storms in Florida. He was called off and had to go to Florida because he was going to be on the team to basically decide where they're going to plant a new SBP in Florida. So chances are that's probably we're going to be later on this year, is because there's just so much work in Florida, and because a lot of people did not have any insurance. I'm sure that's probably where we're going to be going next. Before we could paint, we had to caulk a lot, so there was a lot of caulking that had been done in some areas. We had the assistance of a group of 3 youths from a neighborhood church, and that was a real special moment. I was talking to the minister there. Again, everybody has a story, and he had these 3 kids. There were 2 boys and 1 girl. They all were high school dropouts with no job skills. So his job was to give them the job skills and get their GED. That was his big thing. And I was talking to him. It was kind of interesting. His big mission is when he was growing up as a child, he wanted to get a job, but he couldn't get a job, but they kept on saying you need the job skills, you need the job skills. For him, that's always been his mission. So part of this was like working with these kids to get their GED and giving them some job skills. So they worked with us. They came back 2 days, helping us with the painting and the caulking. One of the girls, her name was Jax. She was doing the caulking, so I was complimenting her and her work, and the minister came up to me and he really appreciated the time that I spent encouraging her. He said, because first of all, these kids don't have parents. They come from broken homes. And he said, and all these kids, they've never spoken to a white person before. This is the first time they've even talked to a white person. So, they've been in Houston their whole life. So it was kind of interesting just getting his perspective on why he's working with those kids. Right before we got there, remember they showed the video where the people were around when the house was done. People were there in the house. We got this invitation because Mrs. Swearington, this was a house that we weren't working on, but on our first day we got an invite to go there because they're going to have their celebration and the ribbon cutting ceremony. So we left early the first day just because to join in her celebration of her house. So we got that, and we were able to go to that. You can see underneath, you got Farmers Insurance, AT&T, AmeriCorps. There's a lot of corporate sponsorship with SBP, and I've got some names, I'll be showing it later on, but that's one of the reasons that SBP, they can afford this equipment is because they have a lot of corporate sponsorship. So it really helps things out quite a bit and speed things along. This was the before picture, this was the back of the house. Kind of interesting story here. This house, as well as the house, Mrs. Swearington's house, a lot of times owners will go with another, there's places, they'll have like Habitat for Humanity, and they run out of funds, so they get only so far, then they call up SBP, he goes, hey, we're out of funds, we can't do anything, can you take over? And that was kind of the situation here, because I was wondering why, if you notice on the top, they had up here they had the windows, looks like it's up here with a smaller window. Well, they ran out of funds, so they could only afford to put in a smaller window. So they were downsizing, and this part here too, above there, that was also another downsized framing. So that's basically how SBP got it. And then they're taking over from there. So, you know, we can't undo what's been done. Well, they did put siding there on the bottom. So our job was to caulk and to prime and then to put several coats of paint on. Several coats, probably too many coats of paint, but we did. This is the porch we had. You see all the spindles and all that. There was a lot of work. We had to tape around the windows before we do the siding. There was quite a bit of work to be done. And then there's her front door, and there's Verna was just inside there, always listening to us. You know, it was kind of interesting too with her because she introduced us to everybody who came in. The postman,
Meals on Wheels
Meals
guy.
on Wheels, and was delivering whatever. She knew them all. She introduced them all to us, so we had to stop whatever. And she introduced to all of it, so it was kind of fun. Because she was there, wanted us to know who was doing all the people that were there. At the beginning, you could see that we had plenty of priming to do there with the fascia and soffits. There was just a ton that needed to be done. There's a lot of porch work. Ginger did a fantastic job with a really tiny paintbrush on the address because we changed the color of the house, and then the address needed to be changed too, so she worked on that, and it turned out really nice. You can see all that we had to prime first before we could paint it. There's Ginger working the address. There's Kevin. There's Kevin who's he was doing the singing. She was right there by the door, so she heard him, whatever. I was glad that Kevin would help out. He just had knee surgery, so he had to do a lot of sitting, but he still came along even though he was in rough shape, whatever. So he was doing a lot of sitting and helping us out with the porch, and it helped a lot. It was a lot of real putty work, it was, but there's Ginger with her small little brush working on the grass. Susan and Kevin. Everyone was then at lunchtime. Well, everyone was digging into their lunches, and they weren't even paying attention. I tried to get their attention, but they were more concerned with their lunches. So finally, I got called. We got their attention and took the second picture. Hey guys, by the way, you know, it's kind of nice with the lunches is because we're in a house now. St. Matt's. Al was our designated driver. First thing we did was we went to the store and got food for breakfast and food for lunches. So then in the morning when we woke up, had our coffee and all, I had our breakfast, then we packed our own lunches. We put them in coolers, and then we would eat what we packed in the morning. Okay, Ginger doing again with the address. There was the one inside room was the bedroom. We didn't get a chance to finish that, but boy, that floor was real spongy. It was almost like a trampoline. It was so spongy. So we didn't get a chance to finish that, but we did finish the exterior. And then again, these were the before pictures, and these were the after pictures. And there's Verna Gilbert there in the middle. She's 85 years old. She's a retired nurse, and talking about the different stories with her was really interesting because she, in that neighborhood, it takes a village to raise a child. Because she was a nurse, she had more income than anybody else on the block. So what happened is, because she had to give us some stories, she had a TV, she was the first one to buy a TV, she had the TV in the front window and would play it, and the family would get around and have their porch around their lawn watching TV, because it was like their movie time. So it's just little stories like that. And so it's kind of interesting how everybody got to know each other. One of the days we got there in the morning, and there was 2 gentlemen who were working on their car for a couple of days right across the street. And they were, one morning they just said, hey guys, you did a really good job, you did a real fantastic job and all that. And I got the story talking to Verna a couple of weeks ago when she called me. I said, who were those 2 guys? She said, oh, those are Robin and Russell. Growing up as a child, because she had a full-time job, a lot of people didn't. So whenever your children needed care, they would go to somebody else in the neighborhood would take care of them. So it was kind of like watching out for everybody else. She said, growing up, those were the kids that I was babysitting, but now I'm 85, they're still across the street, and they're like watching me now. So it was kind of interesting how that changed. It was neat, because she said that even now, she said when somebody comes to the porch she's looking out for, it's just something that just happened over time. They would look over to her and she'd give them like the high sign, like it's okay, whatever. And then when they leave, same thing. They're always checking on her now. So it's kind of interesting, the role reversal. This is some of the updated numbers, because I had a conversation, Al and I had a conversation with one of the volunteer coordinators at SBP after we had finished, because they have that whiteboard system. And they weren't updating their whiteboard like they should have. And one of the suggestions that I thought is they should go to like a virtual whiteboard system, because, for example, like when you're out of brushes or if some equipment wasn't working, they would call it in and then somebody would bring it, but then like there were 6 things on the list, only 4 things got delivered, so 2 things weren't delivered, and the person delivered didn't know that the other 2 things were on there. So one of the things we suggested is that maybe go to like a virtual whiteboard so everybody could see when they put what they needed, and everyone could see even without calling them. And they said they actually had a virtual whiteboard system for like the coordinators, but not the individual places. So they would talk about that. But in that conversation, I asked her, she would give us some updated numbers, and this is the numbers that she gave us. They've rebuilt 3,885 homes. And there's 5,365 families been served. And their goal was preserve $100 million in home equity. So they've done a substantial amount of work, and they will continue to do that. Talking about the corporate sponsorship, those are their main corporate sponsorship. It's probably, there's like 20 or 30 different corporate sponsors, but these are the big ones that are helping out, which makes it easier to provide the equipment for everybody. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Al, and you can go talk about the logistics and get everything set up.
Thanks, Al. I've been on 4 mission trips, and they have changed each time we've gone through it. We've learned from our past. One thing I want to point out, remember in the video, you saw that their house is on stilts? Mm-hmm. That was New Orleans. Every community you went to, there was a light pole that had a mark on it. And that mark is how high the water was in that community, in that neighborhood. When they built the new houses, they had to build them on stilts to that mark. So we had the first house, I mean, the one house we went there, it was like, when we got everybody in there, it's like, hold it, you can feel it moving a little bit. But when the first time when I went to New Orleans, we actually ended up staying in the place where the youth stayed. And it was a converted school that could sleep 250 people, and we were like 30 people, the only group there. So as I was explaining to somebody here before, we slept upstairs over here, and to go to the bathroom, you had to walk across the hall, down to the first floor, out to an outside building, just to go to the bathroom. So make sure you did drink enough water. They did have someone there who did prepare our meals. The second year we went, there's the first year we went to Houston, we decided to stay in a hostel. And that was how you learn by your past experiences. We will not be staying in a hostel again. We had, how many of us? We had 8 men in one room. We had 2 couples were in another room, and then the leftover women were, it didn't work out. It was economic, but it just didn't work out. We had to prepare our own food all the time. So when we went, the second time we went to Houston, we decided, I'm going to take a look at Airbnb. So we ended up finding a house near Space City, down by the Johnson Space Center. We came to find out real fast that that's the way we have to go. We ended up, most of us were in our own room, some had to share, depends on the quantity of people and how big of a house we can get, but air conditioned. They had a big island we could just stand around, and we had a lot of fellowship, and you know, we just talked a lot, and so that we determined that's going to be the way to go. So typically what ends up happening is I will start to coordinate when we decide where we're going to go. I take a look at air flights, try to find the best air flight. So what we need to do is we need to have our airplane ticket. I figure out how much the car rentals are going to be, and then the lodging, and then we also incorporate, I include in the budget monies for lunches and breakfasts. So we kind of keep that all together. This past year, when we totaled everything up, and the church puts in about $100 a person. It costs us $900. We fund it ourselves. You know, we don't do a lot of fundraisers. We don't do any fundraisers, but it was about $900 a person. And again, that included air flights, transportation, lodging, and food. Sometimes we will go out and for dinners. We'll go out somewhere for dinners. Sometimes we will carry out. Like one time we brought in Chinese. We brought pizzas in. It all depends on what we want to do. And one or two, I kind of get into the number for food. I kind of like one supper as a group, but for the most part, we just end up paying our own way. With that Airbnb, you know, obviously it does bring the price up a little bit, but I tried to keep the lodging like $75, under $75 a night for lodging. And once you take a look at the overall cost of the Airbnb, divide it by what did we have this last time? 6. We had 6 people, you divide it by the 6 people. It came in, I think it's $65 a night per person. So, but it was air conditioning, you had coffee maker in the morning.
Look at some different pictures there, I got 6.
Yeah, so this here was the house that we stayed in this time. They did a nice little wall, a little niche in there that they could put stuff. You always, they ask that you take your shoes off, and because we're all working outside in mud, we always took our shoes off. So this is 6 people's worth of shoes. And they had a TV, and we so we could just sit around and we watched some football games.
Football games, and
Yeah.
also the Florida, whatever the flooding.
Oh yeah, what was going on in Florida as the hurricane went through. They had a little, they said they had a swimming pool, but this is what, well, we just kind of like sat on the edge and put our feet in. And then we like to do a lot of social activities. We will go out to dinners. We will go out to areas. We found a little, what was it called?
I don't remember.
Old Town.
Old Town, yes.
Old Town Village or something.
Yeah,
like
so it was
that?
a cute little village, and we went there, and they had shops and restaurants. And you know, some of these things, you know, they've been there for hundreds of years. This is the one that I got in trouble with. I showed it to Susan. And good food.
Yeah, those are fried pickles. I wouldn't recommend it.
And then we did we did one escape room. As we had Friday afternoon. Typically we will work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Usually 8:30, 9 o'clock till about 4:30ish, 4:30. We always quit on Friday at noon because we want to do something as a group. In the past, we've gone to like we went to French Quarter when we were in New Orleans. Houston, we went to the Space Center one afternoon. So this time we decided we were going to do an escape room. And we made it. Barely, but we made it.
We did.
So again, it's usually it's been about $900. We do have the ability. We've talked about this, about maybe doing some sort of fundraising to get some monies to help offset it. But for the most part, it's definitely worth the trip.
Just, I might add to that, any individual expense that you incur by doing this, it is a charitable deduction on your taxes.
Because
So that's how you get your trip to Puerto Rico paid for. Or part of it anyway. You can't deduct the whole thing, but.
And because with Susan with me, I got double the amount of expenses. So any questions? All right.
Yes.
Yes.
What's the normal length of your trips?
Usually, it's a Saturday to Saturday what we typically been doing. Sometimes we keep a look at flights. Sometimes you can get better flights if you do like a Friday to Saturday or Saturday to Sunday.
Okay.
So we kind of take a look at what's the best, but normally it's, we'll fly in Saturday or Sunday. We did Sunday this time, didn't we? We flew in Sunday.
Yeah.
So we went Sunday to Saturday.
Yeah, we left on Saturday morning, right?
So,
So per person, what's the normal, what's the cost per person for the trip?
per person, it is $900 is what everyone paid this year.
Okay.
And if there's any shortfalls, the church takes care of it.
Okay.
So, and if there's any overages, then we'll just carry that on till the next year. So, any other questions? All right, I'll give it back to the other Al.
The only somewhat scary moment we had was on our way back the last day. Al was driving and we were on the expressway and there was a mattress on the back of a truck that fell off the mattress. And I'm not even paying attention. All of a sudden I hear Al goes, hang on, and all of a sudden he zooms by, they went flying over.
Literally flew over the truck.
And he drove through it, and then I didn't even see it, but I looked back and I was like, oh yeah, there's a mattress back there. So that was the only thing that was kind of interesting with it, but it was pretty much that. Again, one of the things that Verna Gilbert had talked to us is she got some recognition from the Texas governor for all her volunteer work. So of course she had to bring that off the wall and show us this proclamation from the governor, whatever. And I wasn't aware of this, but with art, they also have something very similar to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And her wish was to go to the White House and have a conversation with the president. And her wish was granted. She didn't meet the president, but she did go to the White House. And she was going in November 19th was the date. So when she called me, she asked me, I asked her how the trip went. She goes, oh, you remember that? She went, it was her and her great-granddaughter, the two of them went for 4 days. It was all expense paid. They went to the White House, and she said she really enjoyed it because everybody in the Secret Service, because usually when you go to, I don't know if you've been to the White House before on a trip, there's usually groups of 8, 9, 10 people at a time, keep small groups. It was just her and her great-granddaughter, just the two of them. So they got a special tour of the White House, because in every one of the Secret Service men that was in each one of the buildings, in every room you go to, there's somebody from Secret Service in the building. They all greeted her and they knew her name. So she said, I felt really elevated. Everybody knew my name. She actually did get a chance to go into the kitchen area too, because they were getting ready for the French president before they were coming. They were having a dress rehearsal. So they were all dressed up and preparing for it, and so they got a chance to tour the kitchen area while they were preparing for that. So it was a really neat trip. And she said it was nice because then there was also, they paid for anytime they wanted to go place, they had to call Uber or whatever, and it was on the bill, whatever. They just took them where we wanted to go. So it was all expense paid. So I went there for 4 days and didn't have to spend a penny. So she was really, really glad about that. So she did get her wish, whatever. So it was really neat, just talking about the relationships, whatever. So it was neat in that respect. So anybody's interested, we'll have something going on. All likelihood it will be in Florida this year, and it'll probably be late October, early November, just because it's so darn hot down there. We don't want to go in September anymore. We'll go October, November. So if you're interested, something will be going out to everybody. If you're interested in signing, you can sign up for more information. And as we get any more details, it's just a matter of contacting SBP, working on dates, whatever, because they're coordinating their homes, because they can't tell us till the last minute, because a lot of homes are in the process, different stages of development as far as getting done. So that we'll get something like on the Wednesday before we leave, and we'll just pass on to everybody as far as where we're going to be going, the address, and all the information about that.
And what you work on will be, depending on what they need. We've done everything from putting up drywall, putting up doors, working in the tile work in the bathroom, to paint. You guys laid floors at one time.
Yeah.
I ended up working, funny story, first one we went to, it was hot. And these houses do not have much in the way of electricity, so they can't run fans. So Nancy Bowen and I are working in the master bath, in the tub, taking down tiles. And it got to a point where I said, I'm sorry, Nancy, we're sweating and not smelling the best. And we're just gonna deal with it, so. But we've done painting, we've done hanging molding. We had the house last year, we went in the first day and they said, we're gonna paint the whole house, the inside, all the same color. So we went in, all of us were painting, we painted the whole house all the same color. We came back the next day and they're like, wrong color. Yeah, do different. So we spent the second day painting the whole house.
We got it done in one day. But that's pretty much it. Any other questions? All right, again, if you're interested, we'll be sending some word out. More likely it'll be in Florida this year, later on.
Yeah, keep an eye out for either in the bulletin, church bulletin, or in the Voice. Once it gets closer, we'll start posting what's going to happen.
Do the homeowners have say in color and?
That's what happened in this one.
Yes, I think there was some miscommunication. They were actually the ones that were living in the garage.
They were living in the garage, and yeah, there's a miscommunication on the color. So
yeah, so he fixed it the next day.
Why would? And I'm thinking you're working on painting these exteriors. Why wouldn't you put up siding?
I don't know.
Is it the weather there? I mean, I don't know.
Most of the houses there were painted.
Yeah.
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 I'm not sure. Yeah, that's the decision of SBP. We just do what's going on. I agree. I would have put up siding, but.
But in the weather there, it's so humid and things that I wouldn't think the paint. It's not going to stay.
You said they were living in the garage. Is that just while you were working on their house?
They were living in the garage for years.
Their restroom was the Metro on the lawn, and then their showers was the garden house.
So the house was not livable?
It was not livable. It was not livable. So they were living in the. But what happened is originally they were in a hotel for a certain amount of time, and they both were working. He was working full time. She was working part time. And they just didn't have the money to go anywhere, because what they did is they paid a contractor to go there, and which happens a lot of times. They scammed them, took the money, and ran. And so they're out of money. So they had to live in their garage because they had nowhere else to go.
What made the house unlivable?
There was just nothing in it.
There was, yeah.
The bathroom wasn't done.
The bathroom
we got that together. There's no kitchen.
Yeah, because I think the water.
Most of it is mold because of all the dampness.
Yeah,
so they have to come in and gut the whole thing, get rid of all the mold, and then start from scratch.
Yeah.
And
it's just they have to wait in line. Not everything's done day one, and it took them years before they actually got on the list.
There was one home we did. This is earlier on, where the water level was only like a foot from the ceiling. So first of all, you have to remove all the drywall, and then you have to get rid of that, get rid of that, and then the wood has to be treated, and then you have to do the electrical, and pull the wiring and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, you can't live in a situation like that, and that was their situation. Now, we were there towards the end, because the bathroom was almost done before we left. So they just, there was no bathroom or anything like that, so.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Everyone's a little bit different. Any other questions? All right, well, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.